this video, we're building our methods for getting the API data from the movie database. So we're going to be working in the home component. So open up that one and we'll get going. The first thing we have to do is import our data from the config.js that I predefined for you. I'll say this again to you, please grab your own API key because I can't guarantee that it will work in the future. So just go to the moviedb.org and register a free account and you can grab your own API key. So let's get started here. First, we import the data from the config.js. So we do that by import, curly braces, we have API URL, we have the API key, we have image base URL, we have the poster size, and we have the backdrop size. And we grab these from /config. So now we can use them in our component. Well, what do we have to do in our component? We already created an empty state and we have to fill this state with data that we need. So what data do we need? First, we need the movies. We need to collect the movies we get from the API somewhere. So we create an empty array called movies in our state. Then we also need to get our hero image, the data for the hero image in the state somehow. So we create a new property named hero image and we set that for null for now. We need to have a loading property that's telling us if we should show the loading spinner or not when we're fetching data. We set that to false. We have a current page and that's 0 for now. And we also have total pages. That is 0 also. And we need a search term that we set as an empty string for now. The search term is the keywords we search for and we store them in this property in the state. We'll get back to this when we build the search bar component. So how do we get the data into our state? The first thing we have to do is create a so-called lifecycle method. Lifecycle methods are predefined in React. You can use them for performing tasks at different stages of your component's lifecycle. So we have a few to select from. If you look here, we have component did catch, component did mount, component did update, component will mount, component will receive props, component will unmount, component will update. And I think the names pretty much say what they do. I just want to say that the React developer team recently announced that there are some lifecycle methods that are to be considered unsafe. And these are component will mount, component will receive props, and component will update. I don't recommend using them. They will replace them with some new standards and methods in the future. We only going to need the component did mount method, so we'll be using that today. If you want to read more about lifecycle methods, just go to the React homepage and read about it there. I will not go into the other ones as we won't be using them in this course. So we grab the component did mount method and this will fire as the component has mounted. So the first thing we have to do is show our loading spinner. So we do this by writing this set state, parentheses, curly braces, loading, and set that to true. I haven't mentioned this before, but when you're working in a class, you use the this keyword before calling any methods or functions. So what do we need to do now? We must specify the URL that we're going to fetch the data from. So we do that by writing a const, call it endpoint. And now we're going to use an ES6 syntax called a template literal. With a template literal, you can mix your string with expressions. We write a template literal inside backticks. So we do it backtick, and we need to grab our API URL, and we do that by writing dollar curly braces and API URL and an end curly brace. Then we can write the rest of the URL, and it's movie popular, and we also have our API key. We grab that the same way as we did before with a $, curly braces, and API underscore key. And these are the ones we imported earlier in the video. Then we can set the language to English US. And we grab the first page like this. We end it with a backtick, and it's important you have these backticks here because otherwise this won't work. This is our URL for grabbing the most popular movies to show on the start page. Then we can call the fetch items method that we're going to build next. And we send in the endpoint to that method like this. We continue building our fetch items method. We do that with the ES6 arrow syntax. We have the endpoint as a parameter like this. How do we grab the data? Well, the ES6 also have a handy feature called fetch. We can just write fetch and send in the endpoint, and it will grab the data for us. Fetch will return something that's called a promise. A promise is something that will be resolved or rejected in the future. We can wait for this one to be resolved by writing .then after. So when we get the result, we use an arrow function, and we convert that result, because it's raw data, with JSON. After that, we can again write then, and we get the result from that one, and we make a new arrow function. And in here is where the magic is going to happen. First, we can console log this to see if we're getting any data. So we console log the result, and we go into Chrome and see if we're getting any data. Well, I should save it first. We go to console, and yes, here we have the data. We have an object, and we have a property named results, and there are the movies. So we're getting the data, everything is working fine. Now we need to get this data into our state. So we do this as usual by this set state, parentheses and curly braces. First, we need to set the movies. And if we hold here and think about this for a second, when we load more movies, we want the old ones that's already been loaded to still be showing. We want to append the new movies to the old movies. And how do we do this? Well, we can make a copy of the old movie state. We do this by using the ES6 spread syntax. You write 3 dots, this state movies. And this will copy the old movies array, and we can append the new movies after this one by doing a new spread syntax. ... result results. And the results, we're getting this from here. As we said before, we have an object, and we have all the movies in the results property. So we're grabbing from the results, we go into the results property and grab the movies. So here we're copying the old movies, and we append the new movies with the spread syntax. That's the ES6 syntax. What else do we need? Yeah, we need a hero image. So, and this one we just have to load once. So we check if this one exists, or if it doesn't exist, we just fill this one with the first movie in the array of fetched movies. So we can make a so-called short circuit here. This state hero image results, and we grab the first movie in the results. If this is not null, it will return this one as it is. And if it's null, it will fill it with the first movie in the API fetch. We set the loading to false as we're not fetching any data more. Our current page, this one we're grabbing from the page. Here we also have one for total pages. So we grab it from the result and page. Total pages, we get that from the result dot total pages, like this. So this is pretty much what we need to do in our fetch items method. Next, we're going to build a method for load more items. This one is going to be hooked up to the load more button later on. Again, we do this with the ES6 arrow syntax. We call it load more items. Like this. And for this one, we need to have two different API URLs. Because if we're doing a search, we want to load more searched movies. If we're not doing a search, we want to load more popular movies. So we create a variable and point like this. Then we set the state. Again, loading to true because we're fetching data again. And then we can check this with an if statement if we're searching for something. If this state search term equals to an empty string, then we know that we're not searching for anything, and the API URL should get the next page of the most popular movies. So we set the endpoint, and now we again use the template literal with the backticks. We grab the API URL from movie popular, and we have our API key, like this. We set the language to English US, and we set our page. And how do we get the next page? Well, we first grab the page we're at now from the state. So this state current page, and then we add one. Sounds logical. We end it with a backtick like this. And in the else statement, that means that we're searching for something, and then we can do the endpoint URL for the search. Yet again, we use a template literal with a backtick. We grab the API URL, and we grab that from search movie, and we have our API key. Whoops. Like this. We set our language to English US. And now we have a query. And the query, we're grabbing that from the state, this state search term. And then we also have the page. And we grab that one just as we did before, this state current page, and we add one to that. We finish it off with a backtick, and just like this. The last thing we have to do is call the fetch items method with our endpoint, like this. This method will fetch the next page when we press the load more button. We're also going to build a method for searching for items, but we'll do that in the next video as we'll be creating the search bar component and finish that one. So see you then.